Hey everyone, it's Book of Katherine and Namaste. So I have been watching some Manifest Your Destiny videos. Very interesting because they popped up after my videos. That's interesting to me. So I thought I'd respond to them since we've been doing a lot of research on Twitter. And they read very, very differently to me. I have not been into all of that. My family was deep into that, and I know a lot about it. And I just haven't heard the terminology or interacted with it deeply on a lot of deep levels because my life has been medical, if you could say that. I guess I have with massage therapy and certain things like that. But as far as Eckhart Tolle and Oprah and things like that, haven't really done anything. And I certainly haven't interacted with the influencer community. I guess that's what I'm saying, is that I haven't interacted with the influencer community and how it's turned. I've more interacted with the books and the methodology and the things internationally, like people who have traveled internationally and actually done things with the mythology and the magic side of it and the mysticism side of it, and things in Sedona and that sort of thing, but not necessarily the things that are on the influencer channel side of things. So, so what I'd like to say to that is, I guess it's good that it came up on my channel now because, number one, I'm recovering from the newest spine procedure. I needed something to get me on my feet. And number two, because of the research I've been doing recently on Twitter, kind of just goes right in line with this. It's interesting how much they talk about on these influencer channels. They talk so much about history, our history, and how this goes back centuries. Things like numerology and things like astrology, and how they go back centuries in mankind, and how it's been the key to our success. And all right, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about what has historically been the key to mankind's success. And if you want to be free and have a free life and want to take your creative design, what it is within you, if you want to be an actual success and you want to be free, you have decided what it is that's your life's creative work. You know what it is that you love to do. And in particular, what I'm running into is people who have already gotten into Eckhart Tolle, have already gotten into it. They know what it is that they love to do. They know what their passion is. And now they're asking, they're like, well, how do I take everything that I've done on the inside and now how I take it outward? And every time that happens, how do the channels react? They tell you to go, your job is not to go out. If you really want to be outwardly successful, then your job is to go in. And that is the reaction every single time. And and now, knowing all that I've known over the last 2 years and all the research that I've done, I kind of crack up at it now. Let's be clear about something. Number one, Oprah is a massive investor. She's the founder of the Good Club at the United Nations. She's a massive investor in the climate change agenda and the global socialism agenda at the United Nations, right? She is a massive, massive investor in bringing the whole move of the Eastern coming, the socialism, all the Eastern religions coming in, and the movements that come in, and what has happened to American productivity in that time since that movement's come in. Well, what's come in since the United Nations is United States used to produce 75% of the world's goods. We used to have 75% of the trade, 75% of the goods in the manufacturing for the world. And in that time, we've gone from 75% of the world's trades and producing goods and the wealth, and then completely dropped off. And now we are like bottom, we're completely hollowed out. Jobs are gone completely, and people are in debt. They say everything's good, everything's wonderful, Americans, middle class, we're all making more than ever. But what they're not saying is that when Americans back in the 50s, we may be making more than we were in the 50s, but in the 50s, Americans kept their wealth. They were not in debt. back then when they had that wealth, they owned 3 houses, they owned real estate. By now they would have bought a second property, then a third property. They were property owners, they were land owners. No, now Americans may be making more, but they are fully in debt. They're literally like the tan of like lords and servants back in the kings of old ancient Europe, when kings owned the land. So the kings and the banks own the land, and then we just rented the land from the banks and the kings and the lords. So the banks are like the kings, and then we just rent the land from them. So we're renting or we're leasing or we're mortgaging, and we no longer own the land. So we may be making money, but we're not keeping that money. We spend it out on whatever addiction it is. It goes right out of our pocket on any kind of taxation, whatever it is. And then we don't own anything. We don't actually own any land. We don't actually own any wealth. And all of that's happened under these things. And that's what's very interesting, is that that's underneath these things. They say these things of astrology and everything. If you look into the centuries and centuries ago of Babylonian areas and things like that, what actually, if you trace all the successful civilizations, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Romans, all the emperors and all the civilizations, there's this underlying theme. Even the Egyptians, the things that were successful was not the thing of, like, for example, one of the things they're saying is like, you really need to stop focusing on doing and you need to focus on being. That is not what actually moved any civilization forward. What moved them forward was actually doing. The focus not on being, they focused on doing. Look at every single civilization. They pushed their people forward by doing. It was always focused on action. They said, there is no past. Like, this is a phrase I hear over and over again. There's no past and there's no future. That, like, there's not a single successful person anywhere in Hollywood. And they inoculate you already to these stories because they say, that's somebody else's story. Yeah, well, that's interesting because they make you listen to Eckhart Tolle. They make you listen to Oprah. They make you listen to Deepak Chopra. Those stories are fine. But listen to a successful person's story, then it suddenly becomes somebody else's story. No, what happens is you find your passion and then you want to do something with it. And then they're like, no, go inside. Go inside. And they give you all this jargon and everything. Look, the bottom line is that it takes action to go somewhere. It takes planning. It takes actual movement. And in America, you can actually do that. You can take your action and it can make you go extremely far, further than any other country in the entire globe. It can actually make you very, very profitable. That's why you see so many young men go from the projects, get in jail in the projects. They come out, they realize they don't want to do it again, and they go to be multimillionaires. That's why only in America can that happen. You can't do that in India. You can't, the caste system doesn't allow it. You can't do that in China. Their caste system doesn't allow it. You cannot do that in almost any part of the world. You can't do that in North Korea. There's capitalism all over the world. There's capitalism in 99% of all socialist countries. It's not a form of capitalism. Why you get to do that in America is because we have our Bill of Rights. We have land rights. We have property rights. You have the right to a job because you have the right to, a woman is equal to a man. Those rights don't exist. For example, in South America and Honduras, women are killed, has highest femicide rates. So it's like a woman killed every half hour, every 6 minutes or something like that. The number one reason for death in Honduras is murder, right? And I mean, we're talking like horrendous crimes, like machetes are used to cut off women's legs. I'm sorry, I know that's very violent. But I'm saying that when we're in America and you have these passions, the reason that they give you these things of like, just be still and introvert and come in and be this way and take, every time you say, I want to go out and I'm ready to go and I'm ready to do something. And they say, no, wrap it up. Every time their reaction is wrap it up and go inward. That's because if you go out and do something in America, you will actually make profits, especially now that regulations have been slashed so much. And regulations just mean laws that take away your rights. The laws have all those regulations were written by the United Nations, and there are a million laws that strip you of your rights. Strip you of your right to equal access, all the rights that you were given by the Bill of Rights. It just chipped away at all of those rights, and all of those rights have been restored. Right after right after right after right has been restored. So there's been equal access to so many people and so many private businessmen, so the corporations all these huge conglomerate transnational corporations like BASF that pollutes the world, Giant Global, the largest chemical corporation in the world, giant oil companies in the world, Iranian oil, German oil, German steel, Indian oil, Chinese oil, all these massive, transnational oil, chemical and gas and pharmaceutical cartels got a pass, but we had our rights strips because we were private citizens. And they pay for these influencer channels to tell you every time you want to go out and make a profit, which will compete with them because you'll treat customers better than they ever will. You will go after and take their money. You will take their money from their crappy cosmetics that fall apart. You'll take money, you will compete with them so much that you'll take a little bit of dime away from them, and they don't want you to compete with them. And so they tell you, stop doing and go and be. And that's like the last thing that you want to do. You're in America, your doing can take you extremely far. And so what I can offer you is the book that was really popular right up until this movement hit America, right up until 1992 when the whole internalized move and America's productivity just tanked. You'll actually see it when 1992 hit and they brought this agenda crashing into America, into our schools, and Oprah brought like Eckhart Tolle and really pushed it into America. This idea of just internalize and stop moving. And even we were used to do all these jazzercise. We used to have our kids move in school and actually move and everything. And then we all went inert and we stopped having our kids do PE and we started just sitting and not moving and everything. Like I'm serious. If you actually look at the statistics of who has the most money in America, the families that are the wealthiest, both white and black are at the bottom. All the other ethnicities are way above. And guess who's at the top? Indian Americans are at the top. They don't come here and do namaste. They don't come here and do yoga poses. They don't come here and do numerology. That's not what the Chinese do, and it's not what the Americans do. What do? They all own businesses, and they do. They do. Look at the cultures that you're studying and what they do in America, and they freaking work that. And then look, they're top at the scale. They have succeeded beyond. They have succeeded beyond. And so they own all the private businesses because you're sitting there watching YouTube and believing, oh, you're supposed to curl up and die. No. So what you can do is read the E-Myth, what everyone used to do. By the way, have you noticed that all the Ivy Leaguers and the politicians in the upper class, they don't teach their kids to do namaste and do yoga? You'll never see the elite doing it. You'll never see that, not unless it's paid Instagram posts. Oh, no, honey. They're going to Harvard, and if you ever watch any of those Harvard or those classes, you can see some of those documentaries of these classes the kids take, and they tell you your job is to win. Your job is to win. They tell them that competition is good in these private schools that they go to. They tell these kids winning's good. Beat them. They're telling them move, do, go, push yourself, strive, go. That's what they're telling them in private schools. They're not telling them namaste, oh, be, oh, look inward. They're paying channels to tell the rest of us that are their competition because we have a drive, we have a thirst. We have this, we have the American spirit within us. We are just ready to burst forth and actually compete with them and their big money, because that's where the next big idea comes from, because we are down on the ground. We know what actually people want and we can meet customers' needs. All of us can just completely come forth and become amazing, like Joan Rivers did an entire show on that. An entire show on successful people who just had the big idea and made a success with it, and they didn't do it sitting around going internally. Let me see if there's anything else. They said, oh, you want to be free and you want to create. They said everyone wants a job in their work, career and freedom. And that's the whole point, is that we all want freedom. That's the point, is that we actually have it here. We actually have more freedom here in the United States of America than any other place in the world has freedom. Everywhere else is more locked down. Unless you're like a big government. If you're a company, you can go to the Middle East and you won't have any regulations or restrictions on you. You can build any kind of building you want. You won't have any safety codes, any housing codes, and environmental codes. That's the one bad thing, is in America, they have locked down all with using the word environmentalism. They've taken all of our land from us. Remember the 49ers? all the 49ers rushed over to California and they all panned for gold and they got to keep the gold with them. And then they all became millionaires. Whatever they did their own labor, and whatever gold by their own digging that they won with their own digging, they got to keep that. And that was their wealth. And then they were like, all these mineral companies, BASF and Krupp Steel, they were like, we don't want that in America. And so, like, for example, all of New York, no one can touch their land in New York. Absolutely no one can touch their land. So, like, the entire Northeast is, actually all of America is extremely mineral rich, and no one is allowed to touch their land because they've paid our politicians, these transnational companies are paid our politicians to lock everything down with an environmental law. Everything down and locked down with environmental law. But the thing is that it's all the mineral companies who paid for it. So I bet you if you went and looked at these environmentalist places, I bet you'd find on these little environmentalist sites that, pollute the earth or whatever. I bet if you go, if they lock down the fastest, the most, for example, they lock down Alaska the fastest. It is the most richest, it has jade in Alaska. Like one of the most rare and most expensive jewels there is, jade. Like, it's so precious, and they lock that down faster than anything else. And I was just like, wow, it has jade, it has gold, it has oil, it has everything. They lock that down fast, and now everyone's poor up there. They're living in tents, and those people should be the richest in ever. That's the whole reason that they fought for America, because the peasants didn't want to live under kings. They wanted to make money off their own land, and now the only thing people are allowed to do are farm. And then what do? They put restrictions on that and said, oh, you're not even allowed to do tobacco. So instead, they went down to the Amazon, and they razed the entire Amazon forest. There's no Amazon forest left. It's all farming. Bayer from Germany went ahead and farmed it all. So yeah, now they're telling you, you're like, I want to own my own business because there's the internet. The internet's amazing because they can get you to gamble on it, but now they don't want you to own a business on it. They think you'll be successful with it. So what do? They put out these influencer channels and say, namaste, be, just go internal. No, you can go external. The internet is the next frontier, and you can use this to actually get out there. I know friends that have done it. And this is historically, for the last 40 years, people have made bank using this. It'll tell you everything you need to know. It is the E-Myth, and it's why most small businesses don't work and what to do about it, Michael E. Gerber. This is how I made my small business expand. I didn't have this book. I did a lot of this stuff naturally, or I learned it by hard knocks. I had some natural business skills, but also I learned it by hard knocks. I wish I had read it, but I also ended up buying like a business for Dummies book, and I also got a business coach. This would have been cheaper. The business coach was like $300 an hour. This would have been cheaper. It was really expensive for me as a starting business person to actually do that. So I didn't have any support, and I was like, this is cheaper. It's just a single book. This will save your life. If you want to go out there and do. That's what the Egyptians did. I mean, if you really want to do it like the Egyptians or the Romans did and Babylonian temples did it in the way that so that every single structure and building in New York actually looks like these grand civilizations that they all tell you that numerology and stuff is based on. They went to war and consumed other civilizations. That's how they were successful. They went to war and consumed other countries and other civilizations, and then they took their best people, they took their wise men, as they call them, they go amongst and search for their wise men, and they take them under their counsel and use them as advisors. That's how those countries and nations and civilizations expanded, if you really want to know the truth. Even like Christianity, this whole thing of like Christianity that we've been studying online or whatever, even Christianity, I'm learning, Christianity exploded because of these miracles and signs and wonders and stuff they did. It didn't do it because of martyrdom or anyone going inwardly. We're finding out it's because they did earthquakes and stuff and like all these signs and wonders and like, raising people from the dead and stuff like that, and like freaking like, things the prophets did from their Old Testament or whatever. That's the only reason their church, from all the records show, that's the only reason. And so they got burned to the ground. Like they did this big, Roman Empire did a big Jewish revolt and like burned them to the ground for it. So, and that's my cats. They just turned out the lights. And I guess that's time to end. Namaste. Thank you, Tiberius. Crazy time. Donate down below if you'd like, if you enjoy this channel. And you can, yeah, I'm tired. All right. Love you guys so much. My Twitter is at bkofkatherine, and please subscribe because I am really not healthy enough to actually get these things posted on my actual Twitter channel and post it. You guys have seen that. So to be notified, make sure you subscribe. Great. I don't even have this here. So you're just going to have to go underneath the thing. I don't even get to do the end posting thing. So go down below and hit subscribe, and please donate. And I love you guys so much. I'll talk to you guys later, and go out and take your creativity and all that you are and all that you've learned, and go do, and don't like make, you know, Oprah and her good club and bougie people more profitable by staying indoors and just looking internally. The more you do that, the more people only have the option to buy their stuff. The more you make them the 1%. There's no competition for them. You're making it easy for them. That's why Amazon grows. They don't have any competition. And, you know, like, they have zero competition. There's no one trying to compete with them. You are such a force. You can be such a force if you actually do something about it. So, The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. Have fun. And books like it, like, look into the history of him and books that are surrounding it. And like the books, like, that's the horrible thing, is I'm talking to the most successful business people I know. And the books that like were really, that the Americans knew, all the American business and small business people knew and studied, like the basic books that they all knew to know and study, like, they're going out of print. Like, they're starting to not be reprinted anymore. They're starting to go out and not be listed anymore because no one's buying them. They've done such a good job. They've done such a good job that only bad advice is out there. And these little influencer channels that you guys are watching, never forget that influencer channels are run by YouTube. They're run by these guys. They're run by Google. Like, that's the sponsorships. Like, that's how they make their money. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's... Like, when you see the same thing over, when you don't see a person's individuality, when you see a row of wine bottles on the back that are literally like, yeah, please check out, please go inward, please do everything within your power to be just go at home and become something ineffectual and less less productive, that doesn't compete with the 1%. Anything that tells you, gives you a message, do not compete with the big dogs, you know, then you know that they are then they are just another TV, you know, advertising, what is it, a home network channel, like another paid spokesperson, like most of the YouTube channels are today. All right, love you guys. Bye.